Are we ready to go? All right, excellent. This is Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. This is the City of Trinidad City Council meeting, and that's Trinidad in California, not Colorado, for those of you who join us online occasionally. We are coming back from closed session. There's nothing to report at this time, so I think we'll start with our flag salute, if we could. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll start with the council approval of the next agenda for the meeting. Are there any changes or you guys would like to call out? Okay. Members of the public, any suggested changes to tonight's agenda for the council? Okay, seeing none, is there a move to approve? Okay.
Second.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. So tonight's agenda is approved. We'll move on to the minutes from the February 10th meeting. Were those in tonight's packet? I did not see they were. Okay, I was not able to review them, so I'll abstain. Are there any questions or comments from the council on those minutes?
I have a correction.
Okay, please.
It starts out saying that you called the meeting to order,
Okay.
and then it says that you were absent, which reminded me that I called the meeting to order.
That's right. So I wasn't here, so I should have abstained anyway. So, okay. So with that correction, then, are there any questions or concerns about
So I would move approval with that correctly.
let me first go to public comments. Are there any public comments or questions around the February 10th minutes? Okay, then back to the council. We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there correction? With correction. Is there a second? Second. Okay, and then all those in favor. So 4 in favor, and I'll abstain since I wasn't here. Okay. Next is the council reports committee assignments. So I'll start to my left if that's okay. I'll start with Bryce and we'll go down the line.
Yes, at the last HCOG meeting, we tinkered a little with some of our governing documents. Sort of contentious, but more involved. Item involved recalculating the amount of bus stops countywide system that are considered major transit stops. So that triggers pro-housing laws that allow more infill and density development within mile, I believe. Maybe more than a mile, I can't remember. But and I actually voted no on that because I didn't like the idea. It basically it changed from 7 to 21 the number of transit stops. With the methodology, they kind of said, let's agree that 0 equals 10. And then recount everything, see how many major stops. I didn't think that was proper, so I voted no, but I was outvoted. So that change was made to the I didn't bring my notes on that. I apologize, but that was essentially the biggest issue.
So the idea was to expand the number of transit stops?
The number that are considered major.
That are considered major. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Press?
No, that's it for
nothing to report. Okay. John?
I have nothing to report for him.
John?
Let's see, the Redwood Regional Economic Development Commission, of which we are a member of, did not have a meeting in February. But we do have as a consent, under consent agenda to approve the JPA with those.
I just have a quick one from January because I wasn't here in February. I attended the January 21st LAPCO meeting. The Humboldt County Community Services District North McKay Ranch annexation was approved. So that is subdivision that was approved by LAPCO. And then I also wanted to note that my term on LAPCO will end in June. I was apparently subbing in for someone else. So we'll talk about that in a future meeting, but we'll need, we can propose from the council someone to replace me. But the other mayors, in the mayor selection committee will also be proposing someone, so it could end up that it's not someone from that, but we'll see. So I just want to make you guys aware of that. And then January 28th, I was in Australia, so that's why I wasn't here for the meeting. I had a grandson. Blake was born January 28th, so that's my big committee announcement for today. Thank you. Let the minutes reflect. Yes, he's gorgeous. All right. So then, any questions from the council for regarding the committee reports? Any questions from members of the public or comments on the committee reports? Yes, please. Would you like to come to the podium and? If you don't mind, it's just for the folks online. They can't hear in the room.
I'm just wondering about the bus stop. Is the bus stop in our town considered major?
No,
Okay, great.
Good question.
thankfully they did not go quite that far.
All right, other questions for the council or comments on committee reports? All right, seeing none, then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the public safety report. Did we talk about the consent agenda? Oh, we're going to get that. Okay. Public safety report. I'll turn it over to our interim city manager, Dave Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I include every month the stats from Humboldt County Sheriff in the meeting packet. It's a consent agenda item 2. I do not see Lieutenant McCall on Zoom today unless there's a number there that I don't recognize, but he's typically pretty responsive. And unfortunately, I reached out to him today and I have not heard back. So I'm guessing he was unable to make it. What I will say about the stats that are in this meeting packet is that it's very indicative of probably what we feel as a community. That is, the calls for service are the call volume, I should say, is very low. As far as the count goes on these reports, they're all about or less than 1 page. I think there's a little over 30 entries on every page. So 3 to 1 is the typical call ratio from the calls that I've highlighted in the meeting packet in yellow relative to inside and outside city limits. I don't see any anomalies. I do see quite a few patrol checks. And a lot of our calls for service or nuisances are generally around the same area, relatively the heart of town, at the entrance, the shopping centers, and so on. But I do not see any major calls, at least that occurred in the period reported. So, if anyone has any questions, that's.
Okay. Any questions on the public safety report from the council? All right, then I'll move to members of the public, the community. Any questions, concerns, comments about public safety? All right, I don't see any. So with that, I think we'll go to items from the floor. And at this time, members of the public may come to the podium and comment about things that are not on tonight's agenda, generally up to about 3 minutes. And we will not address them in this meeting, but they may be agendized in the future. Are there any public comments from items from the floor?
Okay, Hannah Davis. Street. I just wanted to see if there was an update about signs. I has not healed. So I'm not expecting an update, but I would like to pose a question.
Okay, let's Shall we agendize that for the next meeting, or do you want to address it quickly now? But would
Briefly, I will say that, I think Angela's in the room here, our grant coordinator, and Anton, we can all confirm that the reimbursement was received last month, I think, for the grant itself, for the HSIP grant, and that was one of the things we were waiting for, is to make sure we got the full 600,000 or so before we made any moves, because otherwise any changes could have compromised the city's ability to be reimbursed for the work that it did. That was where we left off. I believe it was in September or October. So that's still pretty fresh, but I can say that we have had internal discussions about it, and that an agendized topic in the near future, in the next month or so, would be a very.
I think that might be the best way we voted on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I requested that we put it on next month's agenda.
Did you?
At our last agenda
I-
setting.
I do remember you mentioning that now. Yeah.
I assumed it would be on next one.
Apologies.
We're
Roger.
trying before.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get it discussed, and because we voted on it in the past, so we just need to talk about what the execution plan is. Got a bad way to put it. We're executing the signs, apparently. Okay, other items from the floor? Right, it's quiet tonight so far. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Any questions or comments from the council? Anything anybody wants to pull? All right, I don't see anything from the council. Any members of the public or the community that see something on the consent agenda that you would like the council to discuss? Please.
It's Dr. Tina Freeland, President for Trinidad. I would like you to discuss the resolution 2026 affirming Trinidad's commitment to inclusivity and support for due process and immigration enforcement.
And we will definitely do that because that's going to be agenda item number 1. It is not in the consent agenda, so we won't need to pull it. So that's the good news. It's already agendized. And thank you, Dr. Freeman. Other things from the consent that anyone would like us to pull for discussion? Okay, I don't see anything. So with that, I'll move to approve the consent agenda. Second. And there's a second. All those in favor? Aye. So it passes unanimously. And we will then move on to our first item on the agenda, which is a discussion decision regarding resolution 2026-2, affirming Trinidad's commitment to inclusivity and support for due process in immigration enforcement. And I'm going to turn this over to the city manager for a brief intro, and then Councilor Breckenridge will want to say a few things as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This was brought to our attention by Councilmember Breckenridge, and I think we can keep it short and sweet. I think the resolution says everything that will give us all an idea of why this was brought forward. It was brought forward again at the request of Councilmember Breckenridge and supported by Mayor Kelly. I've been asked to read this resolution, which I'm happy to do, and then we'll turn it over to Councilmember Breckenridge for a few words. So what you have before you tonight is resolution, the City of Trinidad 2026-02. It's a resolution of the City Council, City of Trinidad affirming the city's commitment to inclusivity and support for due process and immigration enforcement. Whereas there have been considerable discussion at the federal and state levels regarding immigration laws and enforcement practices, and media reports have generated concern with local communities. And whereas Immigration Enforcement Authority resides with the designated federal and state agencies, and the City of Trinidad has no independent authority to enforce immigration laws. And whereas the City of Trinidad affirms that all persons within its jurisdiction are entitled to dignity, equal protection, and respectful treatment. And whereas Trinidad is home and destination to people from diverse ethnic, religious, and cultural backgrounds from around the world. And the city values the diversity, talents, and contributions of those who live in, work in, and visit our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Trinidad affirms that Trinidad shall endeavor to remain a welcoming and inclusive community for all residents and visitors, regardless of race, nationality, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status, to enjoy nature, live, work, learn, and participate fully in civic life. Approved and adopted potentially by the City of Trinidad on the 10th day of March. Should pass by a vote of the City Council, and I'll go ahead and, with that said, I'll turn that over to Mayor Breckenridge to say a few words.
I'm a mayor now, huh?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Breckenridge.
I wrote these things down. The resolution says it all, but I wanted to add many of our longstanding assumptions about the moral way to treat others, about their entitled humane treatment, and about their due process of law. These are being tested across our nation. At times, it feels as if the entire framework of meaning in our communities threatens to disappear. As a psychologist, I know that's not just wrong, it's traumatizing. By this proposed resolution, we are affirming values that have been part of Trinidad's foundation for a long time. That is, we welcome acceptance of all people and a commitment to continuing due process of law. There is so much uncertainty and upendedness in our country right now. I felt that Trinidad, in approving this resolution, would be declaring that here in Trinidad, we continue to respect each individual, no matter their stripe, and we stand by our laws for everyone. If I don't stand up for the humane and the lawful treatment of everyone, then in a passive way, I am responsible for inhumane and unlawful treatment of others myself.
Thank you.
That's the only comment I wanted to add to the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, then I'll open it up to questions and comments from the council. Questions, changes, discussion before I go to public comment.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna abstain from voting on this one because as much as I disagree with a lot of what the current administration is doing, federal administration, I don't think it's our role to try to use our meeting process to criticize or shape or push back on current federal policy. And frankly, I'm not a big, really big DEI person at this point. In my lifetime, I've seen the diversity of this country increase tremendously, and it is increasing. But I think you have to let the river flow at its own pace. You can't push the river. And I'm looking for someone to start finding a way to bring the two extreme sides in our country closer together somehow. Because I think each side at this point is moving further in their own direction, and that is ultimately it's not going to be good for us at all. So trying to abstain from this one. That's my position.
Thank you. I'm going to make a comment and then I want to open to public comment. And we received some written comments as well that are in the packet and on the website. I thought about that first. I want to disclose that I helped write it because the Indivisible team and Katie recommended doing something and I suggested it should be a resolution, so I helped to write it. So obviously I'm supportive. And I want to say why. So I support this for three simple reasons. One, I think it clarifies the city's role and that immigration is the responsibility of federal and state agencies. And this resolution just acknowledges that reality. But second, it reaffirms a core value of local government that everyone in our community should be treated with dignity and respect and feel comfortable participating in civic life here in Trinidad. And then third, I think it also provides a very clear statement for both residents and for those people who visit. During a time when immigration issues are being widely discussed, sometimes they're misunderstood, sometimes not, but there's a lot of discord and a lot of concern about it. And so while this resolution doesn't change the law or the city's authority per se, I think it does clarify our values, and there's a precedence for this. We've done resolutions in the past to clarify our values around how we want to interact with the indigenous people, the natives in this area, like the Yurok tribe and the Rancheria. So I see that there's been a precedent as well. And I kind of find this to be a middle ground to a degree, because I think it doesn't change anything from a legal perspective. It's simply asking that people be treated appropriately. So in that sense, that's why I would support it. So yes, John.
And I agree with 100% with everything that is said in this. The problem I have is I don't think it belongs as a resolution in the city council. And I don't think there's anybody in Trinidad that doesn't agree 100%. We have to restate everything that everybody believes every time the new administration comes into office. That's the problem
That's
that
a
I
concern.
see with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Jack, do you have anything you want to add before I?
No, let's open up to them.
Okay. All right. Let's open to public comments then. Is there anyone who'd like to make a statement regarding this? Please, Dr. Freeland.
So councilors, I am Dr. Tina Freeland. I'm a resident here in Trinidad and I'm speaking in support of this resolution. My Trinidad family, my neighbors, my friends support and endorse this resolution as a statement of our commitment to the people in our community. The resolution in and of itself is a way of rightly pledging Trinidad's support for the Constitution and the rule of law. And we feel that honoring those pillars of democracy, especially due process, is a nonpartisan, apolitical action that many other towns, big and small, across our nation have taken as a statement of allegiance to our Constitution and to democracy. As caring human beings, we have an obligation to state strongly and clearly our support of all people, regardless of race, nationality, sexual orientation, or socioeconomic status. In Trinidad, we have residents who live here legally by virtue of a green card. We have residents of color. We have residents who originated from a foreign nation and have been naturalized. We have LGBT individuals, couples, and families. We have residents from across the financial spectrum. We have visitors from around the world who may or may not speak English and may or not be of my color. But I want all of them to feel safe. I feel it's our moral obligation. I feel it's the obligation of the City Council to uphold those values of both our democracy and of human decency. My husband and I have owned our house here in Trinidad for 30 years and have been permanent residents for the past 3. Whether flying or driving, I will always remember the feeling of arriving in Trinidad. And it wasn't just the clean air and the trees, it's the people. And we are transplants from Orange County. And I have seen personally the destruction and ugliness of intolerance and bigotry. I watched as Vietnamese refugees were settled in Little Saigon. I watched the fall of the Iranian regime, fall of the Shah, and the settlement of a large Iranian population in Southern California. And with that, the fear in those people because they were different from Orange County. And those feelings, I guarantee you, as a clinical psychologist, those feelings are contagious. They're contagious to a community and they're contagious to children. Now, Trinidad is not ideal. I disagree that we all are in favor of inclusivity here in Trinidad. I know that there are people who feel differently than that. But overall, Trinidad is a caring, safe, and humane place to live. I want it to remain that way. And I have seen recently more demonstrations of hatred and opposition to human decency. I have seen disrespect. Let me remind you that both Arcata and Eureka are sanctuary cities. This proposal is not one to create a sanctuary city here in Trinidad. This proposal is to support basic human decency and the recognition that all people are deserving of their constitutional rights. I'm asking you to please vote in favor of this resolution and help us maintain inclusivity for all, as well as constitutional protection through due process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, other comment? Other public comments?
If you can, limit your comments to under 3 minutes if possible, because we've got a number of folks.
What's your name? Hi, my name is Elaine
You'll be
Monroe.
next, and then, yes,
Should I?
please.
Yeah. My name is Elaine Monroe. I'll save you a bunch of time by saying I'm in complete agreement with just about everything the team has said. And I recognize what Bryce is saying. And I realize that we're not the state, we're not the federal government, we don't have the ability to legislate, but symbols are extremely important. When you see a symbol of something that you agree with, you know that you're not alone, that other people feel it too. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, would you like to come to the podium? Do you mind? It's only so folks online can hear you. I know sometimes it's hard to.
Yeah, definitely. I was born in Canada. I'm a naturalized citizen. Sorry, can't hear me. Was just speaking about, and I've called Trinidad my home for the last 10 years. And it's an incredible place. It never occurred to me that there was a level of non-inclusivity here. I've seen people go out of their way to be kind to people from other towns, from other backgrounds, other places, other beliefs, and it's always been just a source of inspiration for this beautiful bubble in a world of whatever the hell's going on out there. So I guess my big question right now is, instead of just looking at what we have on the agenda tonight, why aren't we looking at becoming a sanctuary city? I'd like to propose to you guys tonight, going forward.
Okay, thank you. Council, if that were considered, would you please come to the podium?
And then is Paula's hand raised, or is that just a?
Hi, my name is Debbie Brumberger, and this is the first time I've been to your council meeting, although we had a lovely wedding reception here this fall. I have recently moved to Trinidad from Arcata, and I would tell you that I worked with World Wildlife Fund. It was my career, and that meant that I traveled many places around the globe that were beautiful, diverse, gentle, various cultures. You know, all those amazing places I have been to, that is the place I chose to call home. Not only because the vista is spectacular and the fishing isn't bad, but because the people are gentle here, and they're inclusive here, and everyone is welcome here. And I think that needs to be reflected by the policies that we put in place. I hope that it would be reflected by the policies that we put in place. I hope you will move forward with this, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you very much. Other comments, please come to the podium, if you would.
Hi, good evening. My name is John Webb. I live about a mile out Stagecoach Road, so I'm not in the city limits, but nonetheless, my shopping here, post office box here. Close to being a resident of Trinidad, and I want to encourage you to pass this resolution. We have people of all different ethnic variety in Trinidad, and we have a thriving tribal community as well. And one of the things that really got me in watching the tragedy of Minneapolis was the fact that people of First Nations, Native Americans living in Minnesota were targeted by ICE. These are people who were citizens long before I was, or any other white person was. But nonetheless, ICE targeted them because of their color. It could be no other reason. So there's an example of the municipal. I mean, that is something I could see happening here. We have not, fortunately, had ICE show up here, but they could anytime. We have people who are First Nation who can do business here, could easily come to grief with ICE. They are our community members. They are our neighbors, and I think it's entirely appropriate that pass this, affording them at least some small degree of reassurance that the community stands behind them. So vote yes on that.
Thank you very much. I don't see any online comments. Any others, please?
And again, some of you may know, but I am actually a naturalized citizen from Poland. I was a child by my parents legally. And I just like to say that when I was naturalized in 2003, I had apprehension because George Bush was president and there was some anti-immigrant sentiment then, but I was surprised how lovely and inclusive the ceremony was. It was truly a welcoming for U.S. citizens. Obviously, things have changed, and I think it's important to remember that those of us who were not born here are reminded that we weren't born here by a lot of people. And this may have no teeth, but it has a symbolic value for those of us who definitely don't feel welcome in this country.
Thank you. Other comments, public comments on this resolution? Okay, seeing none, then I'm sorry, was there someone online?
It's just Donna, who's the.
If you're online and you would like, we can't see hands raised at the moment, but if you'd like to just speak up. Yes.
I would. This is Marcia Hughes, and I fully support the passing of this proposed resolution.
Thank you. Other folks online, go ahead and speak up at this point, at this time, if you'd like.
This is Jonna. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I'll just keep it super brief as I listen to everybody. I would say I didn't expect to feel so moved by the comments, but I support this resolution, and I just felt it in my heart to just speak out as a Jewish person. And I think that to not speak out as someone from a group that has been oppressed when it comes to DEI, I would feel remiss. So I think feeling safe in places is very important to me. And I would hope that our sweet town of Trinidad could see that there's more benefit than harm in approving this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Other comments? Those online? Oh, and there.
Well, of course, as you can imagine, I'm not here for this tonight, and I completely understand, John and Bryce, where you're coming from. But as a restaurant owner with a large LGBTQ staff, and as someone who has had to often deal with crises within my own business because of inappropriate comments and language, in which I had a very serious one yesterday. I'm equipped to deal with that, but I can say that my staff, it would send a message and that they would appreciate it. To know that this is a community that values and has the ethics that we talk about in our business, that is held out throughout the city. My husband is also a green card holder. Many of you don't know that. But it does hit home. But I think this goes beyond our current politics, actually, but who we are as people. So here's my 5 cents.
Thank you very much. All right, I think that concludes public comments, so I'll bring it back to the council for further discussion or a motion.
Well, it's interesting to me that the list of protected characteristics does not include political affiliation. So, for example, if I was a Republican, I might not feel welcome because I'm not listed as somebody who deserves full protection, treatment. So when we talk about inclusivity,
yeah, that.
Are we really thinking about, a bigger picture here, or are we just like aligning ourselves with, current political divisions? Is that some kind of code word for I'm a progressive Democrat? Or if it's real, then it should include everyone.
Yes, please.
Furthermore, why is there some presumption that we have to rebut that we're not welcoming, that we're not inclusive? What have we done wrong that requires us to pass a statement exonerating ourselves from any bad characteristics?
You want answers to your questions, Bryce, or are they more rhetorical? Or
Okay, I'll shut up.
No, that's
I'd be interested in an answer.
That was a sincere question. Katie was going to respond. I just wanted to know if you wanted to dialogue about
About the first one. Somebody, if I observe someone being disrespectful to anyone in the street, and certainly Republican or anyone else, I would take umbrage with that and weigh in, because what we owe to one another shouldn't be determined by our stripes. It should be determined by our concern for one another. So leaving anything off the list doesn't, to me, negate the message, which inclusivity. we're all on this big rock together.
So would you, Katie, be amenable, or Bryce, are you suggesting adding language about political affiliation?
Well, I've already told you, I don't think this is not city business.
Okay,
I'm not gonna abstain on that basis, but,
okay,
you know, it also, it's not true. There is no state enforcement authority for immigration. That's all federal. And under the Constitution, that falls under the executive branch, which enforces the laws. Each president is entitled to enforce the laws to the degree that he or she thinks is appropriate. So there's some problems with us trying to micromanage the country and the application of the Constitution from here.
mm-hmm. All right, any other comments at this time? I would just say that my initial reaction thinking about a resolution of this kind was similar to John's, I think, in that I thought, well, I went through this thought process of, is this a direction we want to go? But I think these are unusual times, and I think the symbolism of this is important. So that's why I'm going to continue down the path of being in favor of it. I think it's you can do things differently when things are different. So if somebody wants to continue the dialogue, otherwise I would suggest we move ahead and make a motion, and then those that don't agree can opt out. So, and if there are public comments, I'm going to ask them to hold it this time because we've already moved past that. I apologize, but we're back with the council now. Katie, did you want to make a motion? With your resolution, so I could just.
I move that we accept this resolution.
Okay.
Is that sufficient?
Yes.
And I'll second that.
And okay, Jack seconds. So all those in favor? Aye. And opposed? We have John and Bryce opposed. So
Abstain.
excuse me, Ryan abstain.
Abstain.
So okay. You can abstain if you disagree with something. Okay, I thought you only could abstain for other reasons. Okay, excellent. 2 abstains, 3, and the motion, the resolution passes. Thank you. All right, I'm going to move us on to the item number 2, which is a discussion of the city to appoint 2 council members to represent the city in ad hoc government to government meetings with the Trinidad Rancheria and the Yurok Fox. And for that discussion, we'll turn it over to City Manager Day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a pretty simple discussion topic proposed tonight for your consideration. It is we're asking the council to appoint 2 council members to participate in the next round of G2G consultations with dates and topics yet to be determined. The council conducted a round of G2G consultations in January 2026 with both the Trinidad Rancheria and the Yurok Tribe. Several ongoing items of mutual interest would benefit from continued G2G consultations. No meetings have yet been scheduled, but preparing in advance with appointed members will make scheduling process more convenient. Staff requests the council to appoint 2 of its own members to participate in these consultations with dates and topics yet to be determined. Upon appointment, staff will notify both tribal entities that the city representatives have been selected and logistics to settle on consultation dates can begin if they so choose. So we found it beneficial to maintain close communication with fellow tribal government entities. And again, this is just an opportunity for you to select 2 of your own to engage when the time comes.
And does it need to be the same 2 people for G2G with the Yurok Tribe and G2G with the Rancheria? Or can we appoint two different sets?
That's entirely up to this council. I mean, I think there's some nice continuity with pairs that match for both groups. It's not necessary.
Okay. I suggested that because I thought that might get us, it might help us in terms of organizing how we connect with the two tribal governments. So, who is interested? I guess we'll start there. And the G2Gs generally take place during the day. They can be any day of the week, but I wanted to point that out for those of you that have full-time jobs.
I'm really interested, but
Yeah.
my job's hours tend to make me unpopular.
Conflict. You're not unpopular, just conflicts.
On that note, something else you can do is, you can pick 2 members. Again, this is an ad hoc committee, so it doesn't, you know, it's a one shot meeting. It's not a standing committee. So, you could pick 2 members and then let's just say an alternate. Should the timing of these meetings maybe conflict when the time comes, with an individual schedule, that's an
Yeah.
option.
Well, what do you guys think? And then if we come up with a plan, then I'll go to public comment to get it reviewed.
Well, I'm willing to continue or to again participate in the G2G process. If people are willing to join me.
Okay. Okay, John or Jack, any interest?
I have no interest, but I can be an alternate at that.
Okay, so John could be an alternate.
And I was gonna be an alternate.
You're gonna be.
I would,
Okay.
maybe recommend you
Okay.
come here.
Okay. All right, then I have no problem continuing also, we did the ad hoc meetings last time. My only question is with the Rancheria, so the Rancheria, preferred to have, a council member other than Councilor Kenny, so I'm just gonna be direct, and so that's my suggestion that perhaps.
Could I not, would they be more willing to manage their time if they knew that I
Generally, we meet at their tribal council meeting, and so their tribal council meeting is set I think it's every 2 months, is that right?
not that flexible?
Well,
It's not
I'm
that-
thinking since they heard my testimony yesterday in court, they might not so concerned about me being one of the participants. So.
Okay, so why don't we do this then as a proposal? It's Bryce and Cheryl for both the Yurok tribe and the Rancheria with, how about we make John Rancheria alternate and Jack Yurok tribe alternate? Does that sound fair? And then that way you can have then we can have, do you want to be alternate too? But then
I'll be their alternate.
Okay, I don't want anybody to feel left out.
Last resort.
Okay, second alternate would be Katie. Okay, so did that make sense, you guys? Do you need me to go through that? Okay. All right, so let me go to public comment. Are there any public comments regarding this proposal, which would be Bryce and Cheryl with alternate Jack and then Katie for the Yurok tribe G2G? It would be Bryce and Cheryl with alternate John and Katie for the Rancheria. Ms. Hustler, Coniston, did you have your hand raised?
I do, and thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone, and appreciate your good work. On behalf of Chairman Garth Sundberg and the Trinidad Rancheria Tribal Council, they have respectfully requested previously that Councilor Bryce would not be part of the G2G due to his activity and his being legal counsel in litigation against the Rancheria, involving the Rancheria and representing various parties. They feel that's a conflict of interest. So I would respectfully request that it be the alternate that met with Trinidad Rancheria.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's completely up to the Rancheria, but just for the record, I'm not actually counsel of record in any actions against the Rancheria. You're probably speaking of the Harp litigation. That is against the Coastal Commission.
There have been numerous cases in the past, Bryce, and it's not meant to be disrespectful. It's a matter of, you know, previous litigation and feeling that there has been a conflict of interest.
Yeah, I understand. It is true that I have represented parties directly against the rancheria in the past.
Yeah.
True.
And like I said, we're moving forward and it's not meant to be offensive or disrespectful.
I appreciate that, and I don't take it offensively, and in fact, I'm, you know, like I said, perfectly willing to go with whatever you guys are comfortable with.
That is the wishes of the tribal council.
Thank you, and everyone, and I appreciate the candor. It's very important in these meetings that we have as much trust and respect on both sides as we can have to have the kind of open dialogue in G2Gs that in government to government meetings that we need to have. So with that, I guess then let me see if there's any other public comments about this. Okay, then I'm going to bring it back to the council. So now the proposal before us is Bryce and Cheryl of alternate Jack Katie for Yurok Tribe and John Cheryl for the Rancheria with Katie as the alternate. All right, I would move to approve what I just said then. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, John seconds. All those in favor?
We do public.
Aye, we already did. Yeah.
Aye.
So okay. All right, so I think that passed unanimously. Jackie, you still have your hand raised, but you didn't have anything else, right? Okay, just checking. All right, okay, so I think we're closed on that. We can go on to item number 3, which is the updated discussion regarding the January 3rd, 2026 Scenic Drive water leak. So we're going to talk, this is a post-incident report that staff has put together. But I want to also point out, we discussed this in the January City Council meeting in depth as well. And I believe there was some discussion, I wasn't in the February meeting, but I believe there was some discussion there as well. So yeah, the idea was after the leak happened, we collectively, the council and staff, agreed that there should be sort of a post-incident evaluation, if you will. Like, what could we do better? Nothing's ever perfect in the system or in the way that we manage that system. There's always room for improvement. So we decided to kind of go and do some forensic evaluation. And so this is Gabe's kind of second, it's a part 2 of that evaluation. So with that preamble, I'll turn it over to you, Gabe.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor, and that was a very appropriate and good introduction, and I would build on that here. As you mentioned, this is a post-incident report. I'm a good listener. I think at the last meeting, we heard from a couple of individuals here at the podium, and we heard from various members of the public in different ways, whether it be through the media and even Councilmember Waskowitz, who did a nice summary at the end of our meeting during future agenda items to give us some breadcrumbs to follow with regards to post-incident reporting from some of the major fires that have occurred. Ina and Palisades that made perfect sense to me, and I was thinking about it a lot since that last meeting, and we've had some meetings with the mayor and mayor pro tem recently on our normal meeting days, Tuesdays, and we thought this would be a very appropriate deep dive, I guess you can say, into this incident that occurred, because there appears to be continued ongoing questions and concerns. So that emergency that occurred as a result of the January 3rd Scenic Drive water leak provoked quite a bit of community interest in the city's water system resiliency. The council was provided, again, a detailed account of the incident on January 13th, less than a week after the boil water notice was lifted. And I'm making this pretty clear because I believe this packet was, the January meeting packet was due on the Friday, and I think the exact date, it was around the 10th or 9th of January. and we were still basically recovering. We had not even quite finished. So we were still in the recovery mode at that time. So we hadn't even had a chance to come up for air, right? And we were still in that recovery. So that discussion on January 13th included management, technical, and operational staff to answer questions and help cap and bookmark the incident, allowing staff to return to other priorities. My memo in the packet starts and kind of goes into three main categories. And the first one I'll explain, the accountability, which on January 30th, the city received a substantial public records request from a local reporter requesting copies of emails, memos, texts, and communications from city staff, contractors, and elected officials from January 1st to the 30th. This was on January 30th, we received this public records request. And on March 5th, we invited the staff reporter, staff invited the reporter to tour the water plant to gain understanding of it after she had received the substantial public records request. On February 3rd, a few days later, 52 County Supervisor was quoted in the local news outlets referring to the incident as a comedy of errors during a Board of Supervisors meeting, discussion about the county's drought plan. On February 10th, at the council meeting, two members of the public used the podium to express their frustration, one representing a local restaurant, explaining how conservation of rural water notices created a financial hardship rippling through the community, and the other warned the council not to use the incident as an excuse to consider alternative water sources. At the conclusion of the February 10th meeting, and again, Councilmember Waskowitz suggested a future agenda item to talk about this, and that's why we're here today. The initial incident response is the next category. So the water line break again occurred on a 6-inch section of PVC pipe that was just off the main line and a T to a fire hydrant on Scenic Drive, slightly outside the boundary of an unstable road segment that had been suspected cause of prior leaks in 2024. Quarter section of the pipe, approximately 18 inches, ruptured near the union of a hydrant T at the edge of a gravel shoulder, buried approximately 4 feet deep beneath the surface of the roadway. The water poured out the back of the saturated slope for hours before eventually saturating the ground and becoming visible from the road. The city has a supervisory controlled data acquisition system, we call it SCADA, which is computerized interface for high-level supervision of water system components. According to SCADA, the tanks were full at approximately 1:30 a.m. on Saturday, January 3rd, when the initial leak began. Their verbatim phone alarm system wasn't triggered until the pipe ruptured approximately 3:30 a.m. during an atmospheric river downpour event that brought over an inch of rain during the overnight hours. The extreme weather event lasted all day with sustained winds gusting between 30 and 40 miles per hour at times, and the leak was discovered at approximately 6:55 a.m., isolated at 7:45 a.m., and approximately 70,000 gallons of water per hour lost from the pipe rupture. The main alarm system began cycling calls to water operators each hour beginning at 3 a.m., and that 3 a.m. was a pretty routine tank level alarm, and that tank level alarm goes off. The plant is triggered to automatically kick on and start producing water. The operator on duty that day, Saga Brown, Saturday acknowledged the alarm at approximately 6 a.m. Management evaluated communications received, alerted operators just before 7 a.m. of the situation, and directed staff to mobilize. The mobilization procedures, I think this is really important to contemplate. The mobilization procedures, based on the plant that we have, the technology we utilize, it includes reviewing SCADA logs, getting eyes on the water tanks to verify storage levels, eliminating technical glitches in the communication system due to unstable utility power during the overnight hours, because when the power flickers, the plant pretty much has trouble sometimes communicating to us, or it over communicates because the power is basically unstable, and it's sending messages to the operators that, hey, we've got power flickers, we've got power outages. And it's sensing that. Also, visually inspecting the distribution system, verifying the reported leak site, and also to rule out the possibility of multiple leak points. So it's not just a matter of getting an alarm on a phone and running straight to a pinpoint location. when you get an alarm on your phone, you then have to mobilize. You have to go run through a whole series of checklists to make sure that what you're seeing before your eyes is actually what's occurring. Because there has been times in the past where we've had multiple alarms and those alarms ended up being false. So in summary, while running numerous scenarios and analysis evaluating the minimum time this incident would have required under optimal circumstances, staff determined that it would have taken at least 3 hours from the first alarm. Notice to sufficiently review the data, gather input needed, and determine the gravity of the situation and execute a response. By comparison, it took the water department staff just over 4.5 hours from the initial response to stabilization during the overnight hours in extreme weather conditions. Considering the unprecedented set of circumstances surrounding this incident, including the fact that our team of young operators have never experienced a leak of this magnitude before, this response was outstanding because not only did one person respond, our on-duty operator respond, 5 of us respond 3.5 hours later. And that's unprecedented as well. So regarding the stabilization and evaluation of this issue, once we took our initial response, we had to analyze all the variables and all the challenges, starting with a thorough evaluation to rule out further damages to system components. Once we realized what had occurred, when a situation like that occurs in your distribution system and your tanks have emptied, you're worried about burning out pumps, you're worried about all sorts of other problems, right? So, especially the water quality. The water quality was the main problem. We were then worried about what's happening to the water in the distribution system. So we had to also consider replenishing the water storage and restoring service to all the customers affected by the line break. As reported in the January 13th council meeting packet, the manager initiated emergency water shortage ordinance protocols, handled council and staff communications and public outreach, mobilized water trucking companies, and immediately hired a contractor to repair the leak site. We got our chief plant operator evaluating the incident scenario, possible distribution system impacts, raw water treatment challenges. He implemented turbidity exceedance boil water notices, contacted county health and state water officials, and handled all aspects of our regulatory compliance issues. Our water operators used every tool at their disposal, working around the clock, escorting water deliveries to the tank, conducting routine water sampling and testing, perform maintenance on the equipment to ensure optimal plant performance was achieved. They also contacted prior in-house and contract operators for additional guidance and wisdom, considering they had never experienced a situation like this before. So they were turning over every possible stone we could turn over to make sure that we were working as fast as we could to get this fixed. As stated in January 13th report, the Intertie project was only weeks away from reaching the final construction phase, but it was not operational during this incident. So we couldn't have used it even if we wanted. In an effort to fully understand our capabilities, management contacted neighbor water agencies, officials to run real-time comparative scenario analysis for contemplation and anticipation of public discussions. In summary, as far as the stabilization and evaluation phase of this issue was concerned, considering that the city had been working diligently since 2023 to rebuild the entire operational staff from scratch, with 3 to 4 operators having less than 2.5 years of experience in this profession, 3 to 4 receiving their T2 certifications within the last 18 months. This dedicated team responded fast, professionally, thoughtfully, and in a manner that deserves recognition by the community it serves. Final phase is the recovery and report phase of this post-incident. The boil water notice was lifted after state water regulators required 2 consecutive bacteria-free samples in the 72-hour sampling period, spanning January 4 through 7. Water operators maintained 24-hour coverage of the treatment plant from January 3 through 11 when the conservation alert was lifted. That does not happen very often. Our system does not afford 24/7 eyes on plant coverage. All of our employees, none of them are funded fully by the water department. They are funded by other fund sources, such as your general fund. So no one, if this plant had to afford 24-hour, 7 days a week, eyes on the plant, that's 3 8-hour shifts per day. Can't work more than 5 days in a row. We're talking 4 to 5 dedicated full-time employees to the water treatment plant, which would never happen in a perfect world with this system currently with the rates that they are. I want to make that very. So, in summary, the water system recovered from the full storage loss in 7.5 days. Although equipment failure added approximately 1 day to the optimal recovery time, the maximum pumping intake and treatment rating for this plant under a conservation alert in January that left Humboldt creeks in a highly turbid condition, it would have taken a minimum of 6 days to recover from this, leaving the water storage vulnerable in this state for at least 4 days following a total system loss like this. Incident reporting transparency provides leadership, in this case, the best tools for governing when impacts ripple beyond convenience. The economic impacts of these situations are real and provide excellent reference for capital improvement prioritization, budgeting, and long-range planning. So again, the reporting and recovery phase is very important, and I appreciate Councilmember Waskowitz for bringing this up. And I also appreciate it from members of the public reminding us that this would be a really good idea to do a deep dive. Because these are the situations and these are the reports that are going to help guide you further. And we are going to certainly use this in further deliberations, discussions about what this community wants in terms of resiliency from its system. Everything from staffing to rates, water sources, everything's on the table. So regarding improvements and enhanced procedures, this is where I say the rubber hits the road. After learning from this event, several internal procedure improvements have been initiated following the January 3rd event, along with short and long-term equipment improvements identified. Number one, operators have updated their procedures, requiring the on-call operator to carry an independent water alarm phone. But prior to this, that alarm system phone would circulate to whatever phone number was issued for each employee. So whether it was a personal phone or a work phone, that's worked for us for 30, 40 years. It doesn't work for us. You know, we have now initiated a process where we have our own phone dedicated to whatever operator is, let's just say, on call. I'm not saying working 24/7 and inconvenienced by unpaid time to serve the city. We're talking about the carry the phone that when the alarm goes off, it still circulates to all the other phones, but there is now an on-call operator. For instance, on the weekends, that operator, we call him an on-duty operator. That's the person who works the weekends. So now this phone is now rotating for each employee, sort of like a visual reminder of like, you're in charge. We don't care if you put your phone on silent, if that's what you like to do at night, your personal phone, but this phone, the ringer's on, and this is how it's going to be, right? So, and this is just an internal, in-house operational procedure that we have implemented because we learned. So, number two, the enhanced pre-storm checklist reviewed in preparation of upcoming weather that has real potential to damage the facility, distribution system, and spike the raw water turbidity. So we definitely are taking that step even further, right? When we see forecasted weather coming, we have tailgate meetings. We don't just, leave that to the person on duty. We rally all of us together and we divvy up duties, what that might be. We know who's going what, doing where, and that these things are definitely helping, further communications surrounding these incidents. And the third thing, out of 4, continued collaboration with the city engineer and grant team to consider developing infrastructure improvements that will enhance, number one, making trucked water to the tanks more efficient, because we couldn't get a big tanker. We had to do small attack trucks to get up that small road. And this is something that's been discussed in the past. It just never really materialized because it wasn't prioritized. We didn't have money for it, but we've envisioned having a pipe delivered down the tank site road to West Haven Drive, so we could bring, larger vehicles up to it and pump faster if we need. This is just one example. Provide power to the tank site to enable remote valve operations, which we do not have. And I think that was something that people had thought that we did. We do not. And reduce treatment, anything that can help us reduce treatment complications during extreme turbidity. Those are being brainstormed again at an even deeper level than they have been for the last 20 years. And finally, we're developing procedures with detailed troubleshooting outlines for unprecedented rapid pressure losses and their response protocols. And that's a big one too, but those are all taking place in-house for engineering staff and operators and professional staff, all at the table having this session. Again, my conclusions here, unprecedented nature and magnitude of this event was a learning experience for everyone involved. I've worked here for almost 24 years now. I've never seen anything of this type. I've seen small blowouts. We've seen, and this is, by the way, on one of the most recent and newest water lines in our distribution system, but of course it happens to be unseen. So I've seen, we recently had pretty big leak events, but they involved pipes separating at joints, not an actual rupture. Which again, it's not uncommon to have them at a T to a fire hydrant at all. Ductile iron pipe is definitely a preferred option. We're talking about those options too in terms of upgrades to some of our distribution systems that are unstable areas. But again, they all require money that we have not been able to really pile up in our reserves.
So you're saying galvanized metal instead of
yeah, we've heard a lot of discussions, and there's been a lot of armchair quarterbacking about, hey, usually I just use ductile pipe, ductile iron pipe, or steel, whatever, not PVC in unstable areas, but this is how engineers designed these projects when they were designed. Right. I think a lot of this particular design was at least conceived. I'm not sure the exact history. I have to double check with the Indian Health Services. Really was played a huge part in this sea drive distribution.
It's not as corrosive, so
yeah. So yeah, I could go on. I've got a couple of other things here. I wanted to just touch on the fact that we lost our operator in 2021, who was the last in a 4-year institutional wisdom chain that we lost, and leaving the city with no choice but to hire an outside contractor at the tail end of the COVID pandemic. And I don't care what anybody says, that individual left for personal reasons. He did not leave because, the city was being bad to him. I know him personally, so I can say that with a lot.
Yeah, I echo that.
Yeah.
With all the discussions I've had, we need to retire that tired chestnut that could have kept that operator, that plant operator around, and it's something, untoward that the city did. And if we need to have that person come here to a meeting, I'd be happy to invite him.
And he's a very dear and close friend.
Anyway, so sorry,
we'll
we'll get to council comments. I just couldn't.
So anyway, and then 2023, the city began hiring a new bench of operators and training, led by a homegrown employee, Kyle Shipman, who we're all proud of, to rebound from the dark period and shortage of qualified T3 operators that were skilled enough and willing to handle the demands of the aging Humboldt Creek treatment plant. And the city tried in those early days after Ryan left to recruit and really struggled to find somebody that was willing to take that project on. We began training operators in 2024, and in 2025, 3 of the 4 obtained T2 status, 1 achieving T3 level certification this aspect. And in October 24, following 6 months of conducting the first water rate study in 2012, the city knowingly implemented a new rate structure that did not achieve the financial goals necessary to meet operating benchmarks, reserve targets, and capital improvement needs due to strong affordability concerns expressed by customers. The rates were characterized as sufficient to stop the bleeding, but would not achieve necessary funding to adequately meet medium and long-range improvement needs. Your water team is young, engaged, creative, dedicated, and hardworking. They are heroes in the sense that they utilize the resources they are given to do everything in their power to deliver safe, reliable drinking water to every customer's tap 24/7, 365 days a year. The city is invested in their success, and in situations like this, although unfortunate, cultivate experienced operators that would be more valuable as a result. That'll pass it on to the council.
Thank you. Thank you. Good report. Appreciate it. I'm going to turn it over to council for questions and comments.
So thank you for that report. It's really extensive and detailed, and sort of like the dramatic presentation of what is that. reporter that you mentioned, called, I think may have called all of us. And yeah, I called her back, Sunday afternoon when I had some time and talked to her, and, she was being quite the journalist, really trying to see what was wrong and who did something they shouldn't have, and where was the, but I found her also open to hearing, you know, the comments that I had that had more information. She seemed to accept them. One thing that she did say, which I see Supervisor Jones here, I would like to hear, is she said that he said that the town must be really pissed at the council and at staff because of all the money that was spent on this outside systems in the water plant. And so I hope when he does take the podium, he'll, because that's unfair. I mean, we were in the fix. It was bad of having a water plant. So, yeah, thank you for all the information you know that.
There's you, Bryce.
Yeah, again, could you expand a little on what you were talking about as far as the easier truck access if we have to truck water in the future? What exactly are we talking about?
Yeah, so
A little closer to your mic when you speak.
Oh,
I think folks online are having trouble hearing you.
kind of slow.
excuse me. Thank you for the opportunity. That was the first thing we discussed. So the 1,600-gallon tanker trucks that you see, you're probably familiar seeing for your water and more count delivery, they deliver water all over the place around here. A lot of people have systems in our community that require a little water truck. So those trucks are rather small, and our water tank site is, for the exact distance, I'm going to say at least a good 200 yards, maybe longer, from West Haven Drive down a very narrow gravel road. And we had the opportunity, we were brainstorming immediately with some of our larger contractors who I felt really were, they were just offering free information. We were making every call we could possibly make. I think it was GRS, I'll give them a plug. They said, hey, why don't you call, I think it's the B&B company, they do potable water in tanker size, right? Tanker trucks. But we couldn't get that truck back there. You can't get a semi truck. So what we were envisioning sort of in some of our tailgate meetings while we were waiting for the plant to recover and do what it does was, man, if we just had a line that ran from the tanks down to West Haven Drive, we could get larger vehicles in and immediately, pump that water up to the tanks as opposed to having to do a 1,600-gallon truck one at a time. Right?
Yeah.
So while those convoy of little trucks are going back and forth to wherever they're going, there could be a tanker, a semi truck pulling up and pumping that water to the. So just brainstorming some faster ways we can get bigger water up there.
Right. Yeah, good idea.
Hey. Yeah.
Yeah, you really took care of a lot of things that I was going to bring up today. One of the things that I would love to, further encourage you to do is have bring power to that site where the tanks are. So then you can monitor the levels without sending someone to actually physically look at them. And then also you could add that remote emergency, valve. And West Haven just got a great grant for West Haven Water District just got a grant for battery storage and solar, which I was part of. And I would love to see something like that, there. It wouldn't take that much. It really just a small amount of electricity to take care of that. So,
In response to that, Jack, Councilman Rutalo, I appreciate it. It kind of breaks my heart to even say this, but I believe it was a component or a priority in the tank and pipeline project when it was first conceived back in the drought days. But then when COVID hit, prices spiked. We ended up having, that's why we have one tank there right now. We ended up having to check, to kind of strike some items from from the list because of just, high cost of materials and trouble getting supplies and so on and so forth. So the initial project conceived, I believe, did have the component of power associated with it, but that is definitely on the list. And I know Angela's in the room. I think she's back here somewhere.
Yeah.
And she is definitely making note of that as well.
Then, also add some type of battery system for the actual plant itself, because we have a generator, but when the power goes off, it turns off everything, and it takes 5 minutes for the generator to turn back on. So you need something in between the generator and the computer system to keep it always on, so you're not having these false alerts, basically.
Or look for information on battery power. Got one right here in the house.
And then as far as communication, we're losing cell towers after the power goes off for more than a couple hours. So, I mean, there's other ways to get internet to keep our operators up online.
Sure.
Which I have, which I have a little mini Starlink. So anytime my power or internet goes off, I have internet within a few seconds. So another opportunity for us to bring resilience.
I think you just volunteered yourself to attend our last tailgate meeting. That's probably your most product.
And then also for business owners, I mean, there's no guarantee we're not going to have a leak someday that's going to be as catastrophic as what we had today, last January. So is there any way that basically the eatery and the different restaurants could have a small potable water tank that's essentially always full, but then in a crisis, they could turn off and then keep the restaurant going for a day or two. Just sure there's opportunities to emergency because they're the lifeblood of our community is tourism, so we got to keep them. Yeah, just something.
Good job, Gabe, and thanks for diving into those Lahaina and the Palisades fire reports, because those are really in depth, and there's a lot of information in it. And I think they're good guidelines for maybe the city to take a look at and see if there were similar problems that we're having, that these cities were experiencing before they had a major catastrophic blowout, like a fire that just cleaned out the town completely. Knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars were lost from taxpayer money, insurance money, how much PTSD that people that lost their places had to deal with. And it's on top of all that, it's dangerous for firefighters to be involved in these big horrendous cataclysmic fires. So in those reports, needless to say, I want to dig some more, and I want to dig out some more of the good meaty stuff that we really need to take a look at as a community to make sure that we at least can mitigate it to some effect. We're never going to be 100% bulletproof, fireproof. I don't think that's possible, but we can try and get close to that.
I know, I've been involved in this so much over the last 3 years that I've been on the council. And one thing that I want to make sure that we think about is how we can be very constructive about the fact that we have an aging water infrastructure. We've talked about that countless times. We have, I think the grant team has done a great job of going out and getting grants for new water tanks. We've tried to replace as much of the distribution system as we could afford to so far. We've made upgrades at plants, but we're dealing with something that's it's not the latest technology. So that's I guess point number one is that we've been saying all along. The city has challenges with this water system, and I personally don't believe that there's been mismanagement. I reject that as a hypothesis. I don't think it's fact-based. What I do think is that this city has faced challenges in getting plant management, and at one time had to go out and get a third-party contractor to run the plant, and it was more expensive than any of us would have liked. And so we realized that, and we discontinued that contract as soon as it was possible to do so. So, you know, that's our fiscal responsibility as a council, and some of us weren't on the council when the contractor was hired, including me, but I feel that the council handled it, and staff handled it. I think breaks happen, and I was there the morning that this break happened, as soon as I got wind of it, which was at dawn. And I drove out and saw the public works team, you know, frantically scouring to fix this. So my hunch is that there may have been some things that could have been done sooner. And I think, you know, hindsight's 50-50 or 20-20. It's 50-50. You know, and it's so easy for us to kind of sit here now and say, well, you know, gosh, if somebody had picked up the phone then and somebody else had been home, and, you know, we could have coordinated and checked the, you know, the levels, and somebody could have gone over there in the dark driving rain and the 30-40 mile an hour winds, which I think at that point that I'd want somebody to do that. But, you know, could we maybe have saved 200,000 gallons of water? Maybe, you know, maybe in the 2 or 3 hours, we could have saved 1 tank of water, and that could have made a difference. And so implementing some procedures to make sure that never happens again is crucially important. At the same time, I am well aware that there are, that at the same time that this leak is happening, that the council has been discussing whether or not to continue with the feasibility report to connect to Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. And there are a number of members of the community who do not think we should do that. And so what I'm seeing a bit here is there's a desire to make sure that the city is held accountable for how we're managing water, as opposed to making the case that this infrastructure is aging and outdated and we need to connect to Humboldt Bay. And I have personally no intention of using this situation to argue one way or the other at this point. But I definitely think that it's some of what we're seeing in, for example, news reporting. So I don't usually get up on a, you know, on a podium here and make the case that people should be a little more considered in their comments, but I'm going to say it a bit tonight. That I think some of the comments that are being made publicly about this situation are not very considerate of the staff and how hard they work. So that's just my editorial comment. I do think we need to potentially revisit our water rates because we were, you know, I don't think John was here, but we voted to go with, there was a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. And we chose plan B. Plan C would have raised the rates more, and maybe that would cover more of the infrastructure. And, you know, training and getting more T3s and so forth in place. So plant management. I'm worried about the business loss, the cost of businesses. I fully appreciate what was said. I wasn't here in the last meeting, but I did read it in the news article and so forth. Anton and I were actually talking about it, and he made a suggestion about insurance. And so I do think that business insurance sometimes includes in it a rider for service loss like this. That may be something for the businesses to explore. And so, you know, I don't know if that's something, you know, I would like to learn more about kind of what the losses were. We're very saddened to hear that. And I think with that, I think I've said enough for now. And if anybody else has anything to add, otherwise I'll go to public comments. Okay. Well, with that, I'd like to move to public comment. So is there anyone who'd like to come to the podium? Okay, this gentleman and then Ms. Weinrock.
Hi, my name is Henry Cox. I live in first one, with respect to Gabe's comment, I guess the town is never going to be able to afford to have 27 rich eyes in the plant. That says to me, automation, you really need, automation and in particular automated sensors to tell. I know from the insurance company that I tried to get insurance on the house for, they require you to put a water sensor in your text, flow, just integrate. You don't expect to see water per minute. Fucking morning. This is pretty sure the larger scale thing is possible. Cost no idea. Sensors and resiliency and kitchen resiliency are yet another thing. One power that you do need to generate. With respect to, actually, there was a comment attributed to you in a newspaper article suggesting solution of small, which sounded to me a good idea. Are there regulations for either the health something? Because I gotta believe that me connecting to the whole water supply, that their tank would contain water. Something similar. I mean, if it's feasible, it sounds great. I just don't understand it.
Thank you. Thanks. Really appreciate the constructive feedback. Thank you. I'll go to folks online after Ms. Weinrob. I see two hands raised.
I just had a very simple question. I think maybe Gabe could answer it. I was under the impression that the West Hampton Water District had put in a pipeline that was connected to the Trinidad system for conditions such as emergencies, conditions such as this. What happened? Was the project not yet completed, or were there unforeseen problems, or why? What happens?
Good question. Yeah.
Would you like me to answer?
Yes, please. Yeah.
That's a very great, very excellent question. And to be straightforward, the project construction was slated to be finished as part of the grant deadline. I believe it was January 15th. So we're about a week away from the emergency intertie. Now, that doesn't, I'm not even going into what that water could have done for the city, because I'll just tell you right now that it's at least right now rated for about 20,000 gallons per day, and we got that with the trucking convoy in 4 hours, and then the trucking kept going. So obviously trucking is a lot more expensive, but the idea of that 20,000 gallons, just to give you, we have just to give you an example, we have an 18-foot. Our tanks are about 18 feet in height, two of them. One is a 250,000 gallon storage tank. The other one is a 150,000 gallon storage tank, and 20,000 gallons is about equivalent to a 1 foot possibly in that tank, if I do my math right. So we backflow that amount of water in a highly turbid scenario pretty quickly. But to answer your question directly, that intertie was probably about a week away from being online. Pretty soon.
All right, I'm going to go to online comments. I'll go Ms. Hostler, Carmison, Ms. Levine, and then Mr. Davis. So Ms. Hostler, Carmison, I think you had your hand up first.
Thank you. I was trying to listen to the gentleman before Ms. Weinrab, and can someone paraphrase what his comments were? I simply could not hear anything.
How about this? How about Gabe and I license, and Anton's taking notes, we will email them to you post
That'd
meeting.
That would be great. Yeah, if the
Okay.
volume on the podium can be turned up, it would really help.
Will do. Yeah. And I'll remind everybody again to speak into your microphones, but thank you. All right, Ms. Levine, did you have a question or comment? Paula, can you hear me?
Trying to, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can. Go ahead.
Okay, you touched on some people in the community really don't want to hook up to Humboldt Bay Municipal Water District. I think we're all familiar with the angst about that. A lot of people are very fearful of development, and there's issues with the rancheria not being respected for their sovereignty. It's a very, very complicated issue, and you made a very brief comment about it. There's no guarantees about anything in life. The important issues that John, the new supervisor, mentioned is the fire issues and fire resiliency. The fears that many people have, they've bought their plots of land, they've bought their houses, and there may be vacant lots near them, and they don't want them developed. That's some of the fears. It has never been clarified by the council in depth exactly what people are afraid of. It's a very emotional issue, as is the issue about people not wanting the rancheria to build what they theoretically have the right to build. So I kind of see you kicking the can down the road again. The Trinidad system in a past CC meeting is expected to need major overhauls a few decades down the road. In about 2020, the state sent a letter to all the municipalities in California to try to plan to the year 3000 as far as updating their water system. And then there's been talk about consolidation. Well, I'm going to have to leave it at that. I think I'm approaching 3 minutes. I think this needs a really deep dive into the pros and cons, the engineering reports that are in Trinidad engineering files about the risks of fire. I think that's about it. Okay. I look forward. Okay. To be continued.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're talking about the post-incident report for the water leak, but next month we will be talking about the feasibility study, and we will talk about more, we will go deeper. So this is not, and I may have confused things with my kind of preamble, but this is not the kind of deeper dive that we'll do in April. Okay. All right, with that, Mr. Davis, you have your hand raised.
Hi, good evening. You know, Gabe, thanks for the report. It was good to see a little deeper dive. One thing that I would comment that I didn't see in there that was kind of an immediate thing for me as the incident was happening was I felt like the communication from the city was a little haphazard and irregular. And I understand that it was a difficult situation. There was a lot going on, and I'm not trying to be too overly critical, but I would say that as part of your go forward action plan, I think you really need to look at how that happened and what could be done better. In particular, I think many of us at least are conditioned to look at the city website, and I think a good way to approach that would be one, I thought it was updated a little late as the incident was happening. Again, I'm sure you guys were a little overwhelmed, so I don't want to be too harsh on it, but I do think that needed to get updated quicker because I think it was around noon before there was anything on the website. It might have been a little earlier than that, but it was sometime around noon, which is, in my mind, is kind of far too long. But also, I think as the days went on, I think you should consider regular check-ins, even if there is no update. So maybe it's like a 9, noon, and 5 kind of update where it's like, hey, everybody knows when to look, so you don't just have to guess and see if there's an update. You can actually just know that I can go at 5 o'clock and I get an update. And even if the update is no update, that's fine. You just post something that says no change from noon or no change from 9 or whenever. I think things along those lines. I also think it highlighted the need for us to have a better way to disseminate information to the community. We only got, I think, one text message about it. And I think text messages are a very important way for us to, or a very easy, relatively easy way for us to get information. I don't know the technical on your side of things. So anyways, I would just suggest that as part of your, action items going forward, that be something you add to it.
Yeah, great.
The only other comment that I had, and I'm just a little confused. Oh, actually, I have 2 other comments. One, I think it's interesting that there's this discussion about the Humboldt Bay connection, whether we do it or not. And I'm not looking to weigh in too much on that other than first, I don't quite understand why we're still having the discussion about whether or not we're even going to do a comparative analysis when I believe in the fall there was a vote, and it's even referenced in the staff report this month that we were going to do a comparative analysis, and yet here we are in March and we're still kind of dragging our feet on it. It seems to me, unless Cheryl, what you were referencing was that comparative analysis is going to be revealed next month, which to my understanding is not what's going to happen, but I might be wrong on that. So I just don't understand why, if the council voted to do it, it's not being done and it's not being acted on right now. And I'm a little, frankly, if that's true, I'm a little frustrated by that.
Okay.
Lastly, I would just say, I think, and this is just something that as I was listening to the conversation, we have aging infrastructure, whether we hook up to the Humboldt water district or not, my understanding is we would still be using our aging infrastructure. So, not that I'm exactly excited about this, but if the rates really didn't cover what we needed to do to maintain just even our basic infrastructure, then I think we really have to revisit that based on the conversation we're having tonight. So that would be my last comment. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the comments. Thank you. And yeah, we noticed that communication in real time was not ideal. We've definitely had some learnings in that regard. So with the heads were nodding, and then yeah, we'll talk about the comparative analysis. Please come to the podium, and then I know I think they just haven't put their hands down, right? Yes, John has the comment. Right. You go ahead, and then I'll go to the next person.
I figured I should follow Andrew. Why not? Just like a Davis sequel. I want to speak kind of as a member or the president of the chamber right now, because I think both things can be true on this, that we did our best, but there were real losses here. And I would sort of offer the chamber board and what we're doing with promotion to kind of our services to help maybe ease the communication, to talk to the businesses, to collect information, anything we can do to express what happened, the impact it's had on the businesses, and also support the city going door to door and saying, hey, please give us your phone number so that the next time we lose 400,000 gallons, at 9 a.m. and, don't take a shower, because we were going door to door and texting people, being like, hey, you have a short-term rental, please tell your tenants, right? Because people also from short-term rentals lost money, because went home, went to cancel the reservation. The other thing I want to mention is about resiliency. I think that we should remember that we have a university here, and it is full of people who created things like the Arcata Marsh, which is a marvel when it comes to engineering, right? We have an engineering department that deals with water and conservation. We have a fire management that is department based now on kind of indigenous practices being developed. So very much in line with our county ethos. There's even a simulator in the library on the second floor where you can put in Trinidad and study how a fire will travel through the town based on where it's coming from and conditions in the town, humidity, heat, etc. I know because the student very briefly set the town on fire for me. I'm joking, but it is true that they have amazing tools over there, and they have a history of getting students to come to communities and partner with people to solve problems like this. I know we have a budget issue, but this is exactly the kind of real world application the university, I think, is interested in. I can't, raise anybody's hand in the department because that's not what I'm saying, but I do think it's worth having a conversation and seeing if they'd like to partner with us, or at least have a conversation about how their subject matter experts could weigh in on this.
Thank you. Thank you.
John, and then Jackie.
Okay, John, this
Me?
John. Oh, John. Okay, Joanna, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gabe, for your really great post-game analysis. It was really insightful to read. And I really appreciated that. I would share that as someone who had a house fire up on Berry Road, and my house nearly burned to the ground, but didn't, because there was water in the hose, and my neighbor was able to put it out. Being up in Trinidad during this catastrophic leak and event really highlighted that for me, that I was we're at the top of the hill, so we had zero water, whereas some of the vacation rentals I managed were on scenic, actually getting flooded by that water running down the hill, but they still had water, just because of geography. So that's a deep concern I have. And I would say that, of course, leaks it's hard to prevent those things from happening. They happen. And this was a catastrophic one, but what was partially catastrophic was the human error, and not getting the call. And I could only imagine if I had my vacation rental managers thinking that the other one was on call, and the other one thinking the other was on call, and there were a catastrophic event at one of our vacation rentals, and they just like, oops, I thought you were covering the phone. Oh, I thought you were covering the phone. Wow, that would be a real problem for me in my business. And I applaud the solutions that you guys have come up with for that, having a special phone. But the human error cost a lot of water, and the transparency of it all took a bit, and that was concerning. And I mean no disrespect, because I think everybody at the city is very hardworking, and I think earnestly hardworking, and I know didn't get a lot of sleep for days on end because I saw them working, but people could lose their jobs for things like that. And I think that it is, I'm glad that everybody is coming together to see where the problems lie for prevention, because that it's huge. The communication was slow. I agree with Andrew. It was slow. The first place I looked when I woke up that morning and didn't have water was the city's website. And I agree, it took way too long to get any sort of alert. Someone's job, I'm not sure where, should be to post that as soon as possible. And I think that was a little bit slow. And I think the boil water seemed slow to me. It was almost embarrassing to have to go back to vacation rental guests and say like, oops, probably should have been boiling your water. So I'm not sure why. Maybe I don't know. Maybe a boil water alert should just go out. Like, can't hurt, can only prevent issues. Sadly, I think looking at this, it was hard to separate myself from reading this report and reading the budget and seeing like, are we just the little town that maybe can't anymore? You know, I think there's revenue issues. I think there's some things that it really concerns me as a homeowner and as a business owner, as a stakeholder that manages a number of vacation rentals. Like, is this sustainable? Are we sustainable as a city? Water is the number one resource that we all need. And I, to find out that we have to have category 3 roads to have STR, short-term rentals, to get permits for the county. So to find out that the road isn't really functioning for what we need, and that there's no power and all these things is concerning. And I'm glad we're looking at those. But yeah, I think when we look at the potential of tying in, we might want to be the little city that could, but I really am not sure that we can. And I think we have to look at sustainability long-term as a city. I think we need to look at revenue sources. I think we've lost some real revenue streams in the city. And I think change can be hard. I look down when I'm in town at what the Rancheria has accomplished down at the pier and in that area, and it's phenomenal. And so I think sometimes we are fearful of change and tying in with another entity and losing control of our little city, but I think there's benefits to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Who was that was on the line?
That's one thing I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was that was speaking?
So this was Jonna, who is a business owner, short-term rentals in the city. I think what we didn't talk about in here was kind of the cascade of communications. There were a lot of hands on deck, running around. I personally went to all the businesses that morning and talked to everyone that was in the business. But the posting of things on the website, to Andrew's point, I think Gabe and I were kind of nodding at each other because we were working on things in real time. It's hard. We need another person who goes and does the communications, and that was one of the things that we talked about before we even did this report. Was like, gee, we need another person who's not in the middle of the crisis who can sit down and do the reporting and make sure the communications is managed. And so I just, editorial comments, I really appreciate the partnership with local businesses and the chamber, and coming up with some better ideas for how we can do that. We do have an SMS system, so we can text people, and so I love the idea of getting more people signed up for that as well.
Mayor,
Sorry, Jackie, go ahead, and then I think Betsy wants to come.
I was just letting you know that my hand was up on purpose. I don't have to.
Thank you.
I don't have to go now.
Because I thought you hadn't taken it down. So thanks for letting me know. Please go ahead.
I just wanted, and I'm going to save the bulk of my comments for your next meeting when you do talk about the feasibility study. I just want to plant a seed today because I've just been alerted to this, and I'm a little bit slow in getting caught up on the news because I'm so busy doing my regular job. But and you all might be aware of this, but I wasn't aware of the drastic drain on California's water resources due to the rapid growth of data centers for AI. They require massive amounts of water for cooling. These facilities can consume millions of liters of water daily in already drought-prone regions, potentially threatening local water supplies. And you can look it up yourself and get more information. But planting that seed tonight for your discussion at your next meeting, and because I'm seeing water resources being drained throughout the state. You know, Whiskeytown Lake was low when I went by 2 weeks ago. Reservoirs are low. So data centers for AI are just guzzling lots and lots of water. And I think it's a California issue. We really need to, it's a national issue, but we really need to factor that in.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you. I read about that as well. Any other public comments?
So, I mean, a lot of great comments tonight from everyone. Gabe's in-depth report, I really appreciated hearing some of that in more depth. And Jack, thank you for not forgetting about us in the business community. We need to know that. Jana's comments really hit home. If you don't know, Jana owns Trinidad Retreats. It's a business that's been operating here for, oh gosh, I don't know, almost 30 years, I think. So they were also hit hard and kind of been left out of the equation. So clearly everyone knows how disappointed I am, as are you, as should you be, of the lost revenue that happened not in the individual businesses, but obviously the collective and what that means for the city, considering we fund you. Right, we fund you. We fund the city. So obviously it's your job to keep them all accountable. Nobody, I certainly am not, judging them for the job that they did that week. I think it was incredible to see how quick and efficiently they all came together. I think it was also amazing to see our citizens come together and create phone chains that they had already implemented in place and emails. And we certainly know that we can grow and learn from this experience. And I'm expecting that it's all going to be documented and we're going to have a plan of attack for the next emergency, no matter what that is. Because let's be honest, as business people in this community, in the rural Northern California, on a coastline that's constantly eroding, these things are going to happen again. And it is your responsibility, whether it's this council now, or it's 5 years from now, or it's the past councils that have already done a lot of the work. We can't forget the reports we put in, what we've already paid for, what we already know about, and we have to keep revisiting those. This water system, if we're keeping it, it has to become resilient. We have a very talented grant writer. Hopefully there's funding out there that she can find to continue to chip away very quickly at this problem. Because the January minutes told us, right, and the expert that you guys have on the line, that our alert system was bare bones. We need to start upgrading those. What happened to reports? I think it was either GRS or GHD in 2019 put together, I believe, 5 different reports.
Yeah.
We need to pull those reports. We need to reread them. We need to see, and for new council members, you need to understand what that history is and use the resources we already have. What can we afford? What can we get grants for? What is completely out of our ability? And honestly, I, as a business owner and as a Californian, born and raised here, I would have paid more money for our water rates. And quite honestly, we should. We should have. I didn't create this problem. I don't like it. I don't like that over $1 million was spent in this, what seems to be a fiasco. But we have to solve it. And quickly, because now people like me, every business in this town is suffering because you don't have anything to give us. So, John, I'm going to say what you just said. Continue to dig deeper, please. Fire, electricity, water. Can we move the laterals off of scenic? Can we create laterals? I mean, there's a lot of solutions here, but I'm expecting all of you to make that happen, and the next generation of you to do that as well. So you want to support these guys? That's what you need to do. That's what we as a community need to do. Protect ourselves, continue to be resilient. And yeah, some of these things are scary, as John pointed out. But we're not going to get anywhere if we push anything under the rug. And I'm going to continue to be here. Make sure you know, whether you like it or not. So, thanks.
Thank you. I believe you're up. Supervisor Madrone. I would ask that we kind of stick to around 3 minutes, just because we're getting to the kind of wee hours and I start to get the side eye.
Well, that's an interesting start to this because you've given some other people 6 and 7 minutes. And I have a lot to
Okay,
offer.
how about we compromise on 4 or 5?
I have a lot to offer, and as well, some council members have said, you really want to hear from me in regards to specific comments that have been attributed to me in the paper. So I'll do my best to keep it brief, but I would hope that you appreciate what I might have to offer here, and I will keep it on topic. So I will do my best, Madam Mayor.
Excellent. I did not mean any offense. It's just
Didn't
that
take any offense?
traditionally sometimes we've gotten into long discussions about possible underwater solutions for Trinidad. And what I would ask is that we discuss those in the April meeting versus tonight. That's
Absolutely.
no disrespect.
I'm here to try and help.
Please go ahead.
Offer some feedback and solutions and recommendations. Fiasco, one of the words was just used. There's a lot of terms being thrown around the community. So my comments in the paper were really a reflection of what I've been hearing from constituents, as well as knowing the water system quite well. I did my master's thesis on Bluefield Creek. I've lived in the headwaters for 40 years. And I've been involved in these issues for a long time, and I've never charged you a dime for any of it. And I bill out at $100 an hour. I could easily, been a consultant in doing that, but I didn't. I did it for free because I care about this community. The comments that were made, I apologize if they felt, severe. I think even in Gabe's report and the comments that were made, there has been a recognition that there was some errors that occurred. For instance, when staff didn't know who was on call and the other person was, et cetera, that's documented in the report. That was a problem that led to a lot of other problems. So in regards to the current situation, it's important to recognize that whether or not it doesn't matter where you get your water from, whether it's Bluefield or Humboldt Bay, you're going to have to continue to work on fixing the leaky pipes. Because that's your distribution system that has to be dealt with. And I applaud the city for the work that's been done. I think you took a lot of mine and other people's recommendations in securing funding to replace that one redwood tank, which was actually the newer one because it didn't have as good of redwood in it as the older one, as well as fix a lot of leaky pipes and are doing the intertie project. Those are really great investments that the city has made. And I applaud you for that.
I think those are really important things to get done. There's a whole lot more of that to do. A lot of how the city, the Rancheria, and West Haven have raised a lot of these, now maybe almost $20 million or more in the last 10 years for projects to improve the water system, as well as reduce sediment in the island, replace the piers and other things, has happened because we have a watershed council of stakeholders, and I was the one who helped start that watershed council. And it's because in the grant world, when you have a stakeholder group like that, it moves your proposal to the top of the pile as far as priority because you have a stakeholder group. So I'm proud to have been a part of that, and it continues at some level still. That's an important thing. Distributed storage is something I've talked with you a lot about. I appreciate the comments that were made earlier. Because if you have a 5,000 gallon tank at your restaurant or at your house or whatever, for 2 people, that's enough water for about 60 days. And you can have a small pump with it. You can install these without permits because they're not subject to the building code. If they're 5,000 gallons or less, it's about a 10 foot by 10 foot area, and you have to install a check valve. So it cannot backflow into the city's system. That's a requirement of doing these, so that's part of the technology, and that's great. But distributed storage is not only something for backup when water's not available, it's also something right there for fire. It's reliable. In an earthquake, a big earthquake in particular, pipes are going to break. And even if you had a pipeline from Humboldt Bay to McKinneyville, those pipes can break in a big earthquake. So just because you have a pipeline doesn't mean you're necessarily ready for a big fire, especially because a lot of fires happen in earthquakes because things, electrical and other things happen. McKinneyville is having a hard time getting their redundant line, their redundant pipeline over the Mad because they recognize they're vulnerable to earthquake with that pipe. Because this current administration, federal administration, has dismantled FEMA and the hazard mitigation grant program is falling apart. So those grants are no longer being delivered to communities, and so they're not able to get their redundant line. City of Arcata just in the last month talked a lot about the fact that they're already maxed out and they can't really add more customers because they don't have resiliency and backup and redundancy in their own system. And they realized that with the big Arcata fires, when they were delivering 9,000 gallons a minute, 9,000 gallons a minute to try and fight that 1 block fire. If that was a 2 block fire, they predicted they would have run out of water in Arcata tanks, and Humboldt Bay would have had a hard time keeping up with the supply. So there are lots of issues. So if you have a 5,000 gallon tank in every other house and restaurants all over town in West Haven and North Trinidad, you have redundancy, you have resiliency, you have water where you need it, and that wouldn't be affected by an earthquake. So I've been talking about that for a long time. I still think it's a really good thing to keep on your radar. The other thing is this happened in a, like Gabe said, a perfect storm situation. It was a big storm. The creek was very turbid. And when the creek's really turbid, you can't really produce water. So that's why I'm telling you, I would advise you to do this study on the Franciscan Springs upslope in the inner watershed of Humboldt that provides gravity flow to the plant, and there's monies out there. I've been talking with the water board recently about very specific funding that's available to do that study. If you're interested, I'd love to help you with that and get those funds to do that, because in this situation in particular, had you had those springs tapped with gravity flow, which are primarily there to produce water in the winter when the creek gets turbid. In the summer, you can still pull water from Humboldt Creek because it's clean, but in the winter, these springs that are gravity flow could have provided you with instantaneous water supply. 90,000 gallons a day by tapping 4 springs. Just 4 springs gives you enough water by the nature of those springs. So that's something that I think is also in your resiliency platform, I think. I would hope, and I'm again offering my services for free to work with you to help secure the money to do that study and then hopefully eventually install all that. Lastly, I actually had specific conversations with one of your previous plant managers, your first T3 person that left. And he told me specifically that he left because his advice was not being taken seriously by the city manager at that time. And that the burden and responsibility to run that plant 24/7 was too much at the rate of pay that he was receiving. So, we can conjecture about a lot of things, but that was firsthand conversation that I had with that individual. It's not rumor, it's not hearsay. It was a firsthand conversation. The second tier 3 operator was quoted in an article in the paper right after this all happened that she had advised the city manager and the city to install this new technology that you put right in line in the pipes. And when a pressure drop happens or a really rapid flow of water, it shuts the line off. I don't see that in the recommendations here in your report tonight. And why, I'm not sure, because it's not like it's $500,000, $250,000, but affordable when you think about the cost of trucking water and all the other things. So having that inline technology, which is readily available, and having that in your plan to install that would be a fail-safe.
Yeah, I remember that coming up, and I know it's
Yeah.
evaluated, so we'll take that
Yeah.
feedback and have a look, and yeah, and with personnel issues, we're not at liberty to discuss those
I
here,
understand.
so I can't.
And that's why I don't name names either.
Yeah.
Because it is
Thank you.
development.
I appreciate that, and people, we've talked about this kind of ad nauseum. People move on,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and for various reasons, and sometimes you just have to realize that happens, and then you go and you hire somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the more positive approach that the city is trying to take, is to move forward and to.
Absolutely, and I agree with that completely. In all fairness, most of the members of this council weren't even on.
Yeah, it was 5 years ago.
When a lot of these decisions were being made, but
Yeah.
it is now your turn.
Yeah.
And so to not install inline safety valves that shut these off automatically will be a decision that you'll make. Or not, maybe you have to raise water rates to be able to afford to do that. Okay, I just wanted to share that. My apologies if I insulted anybody, but again, I was reflecting comments I heard in the community like tonight. Where comments were made about some of these. So I just wanted to share with
I
you.
appreciate the
Most
apology.
I wanted to share with you suggestions for how to improve your system, be more resilient and more fail-safe with your water, and get cleaner water through the Springs development as well. So thank you for the
Thank you.
time.
That's what we all want.
Okay, is that okay? That was like me.
That was fine. That was fine. Again, I was just trying to bifurcate the discussion.
I understand, Cheryl.
I know you have a lot of thoughts about water. I think staff was offended. I appreciate your we are not trying to be defensive. We want to be productive and constructive, and also, again, personnel issues we take. Those are in private sessions.
Absolutely understand, and I applaud the council for wanting to try and figure out what to do about all this. Thank you.
Yeah, we're taking all the feedback. Thank you. All right. Other public comments? And if not, then I'm going to bring it back to the council. All right, council, I don't think there's any voting on this. This is just accepting the report at this point. If you have any last comments you want to make, this is a good time to do it.
Thanks for the update.
Yeah, thanks for the update, and yeah, thanks to the public for all the good constructive input.
I think all in all, we have a great staff, and I'm looking forward to working with them long into the future. Everyone's going to get better at what we do, hopefully, me included. And so thanks.
Yeah, there's lots to learn, and we will be talking about this more in April, as I mentioned, and so that will be a good time when we talk about more strategically what we want to do long term, and the investments that we've made today, because there have been quite a few. All right, so speaking of investments, let's move on to the mid-year budget review discussion update. Gabe, if you're ready for that.
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. I won't take too much time here. I'm not going to read this whole report, but what I will do is just highlight a few things in the spirit of keeping things moving. We will be embarking on the full budget dive in May, so that's just 2 months away. But these reports that are included in the meeting packet are from, I believe, they finished through the month of January. And I thought I would just highlight a few things. So the included in the packet for consumption is the staff report that gives a little primer, especially for maybe Councilmember Waskowitz, who is maybe a little bit new to this government fund accounting system. And within those statements, there's individual fund budget for each, or an individual budget for each of our segregated funds.
Excuse me, which page are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry. That would be in the consent agenda, actually. It's kind of in reverse.
That's what I.
Yeah, sorry. So those are in, I believe it's a consent agenda item 1. So, not to have to go toggling back and forth, but those statements are what I use every month to evaluate and understand highlights and lowlights, any anomalies, any misallocated expenses or revenues, that are as a result of human error, perhaps. And then we make corrections. So typically around the mid-year time is when we take account for where we hope to be, where we expect to be this time of year. January, the statements are due January again, and for several individual funds that make up our portfolio of government funds. Anyway, there's this time of year too, there's a few large significant payments that are expected to be received in the coming months that are not reflected in the January report, such as COPS grant payments or property tax installment from the county. That's the first property tax installment. We get 2. Several sales tax payments. Sales tax payments have a pretty massive delay, sometimes 2 to 3 month delay. And a quarter ending March 31 transient occupancy payments.
So this is on the revenue page 9, right? Dave?
Yes, thank you. Let me, I can probably.
Just for anybody
following along.
Yeah.
Well, I could bring up those statements if you think that would be helpful. I'm not going to be looking at those statements directly. I'm just going to cut right to the chase here.
Okay.
We could dive a little bit into my summary of the water fund. But I paused on that because currently we're doing an in-depth analysis with RCAC, who had a technical assistant grant for 60 hours to review the rates that we put in place October 2024. So that started this last month. I believe I sent an email out to you, Mayor Kelly and Bryce today, just to give you an idea of where we're at with that project. I'm responsible for providing them with some background data in terms of the financial status as of today and a whole series of questions that they've asked. So before, I didn't want to even take a step in trying to analyze our water fund right now, because that is basically going to happen this upcoming month. So I'm going to defer to that. But what I will say this is that in 2025, the city infused $300,000 of general fund revenues to stabilize the water fund. And as we kind of build towards our budget discussion in the future, I just also want to put out a reminder to anyone who might wonder about our water fund. We've had some discussions about this water leak, and water continues to boil to the surface in our discussion topics. And the water fund is designed, and it's called an enterprise fund. So it is not supposed to be infused. I've heard people say, well, you guys have enough sales tax or TOT income, you can pay for your water fund. No, that's not how it works. Water fund is an enterprise fund, and it is to be paid entirely by ratepayer fees, right? So it's supposed to be an insulated system. Only the one time where we deposited $300,000 from the general fund to stabilize that, which the council can't do, but it's not preferred, it's not best practice, and it was just to recover from our depleted reserves. So the rates in the water fund are going up 10% every July 1st, as a reminder as well. So when we do our analysis here, we'll be able to give you more information on the water fund, perhaps next month, and maybe even itemize that as a separate discussion topic, since we're going to be talking so much about it.
I think one thing when we talk about it, the rates and when RCAC comes back is, just the fact that I did say earlier, we took Plan B versus Plan C, et cetera, right? But that wouldn't have helped us in the near term. Those were long-term recuperated investments, if you will. So it wouldn't have made any difference if we'd raised the rates, a month or a year ago. It needed to be a longer term rate raising to pay for infrastructure, unfortunately. So,
But I'm glad that we're getting the analysis again with the same consultant, so that'll be useful to see.
and we can revisit
how
it.
it would be.
Yes.
Yeah, we may revisit it and
Sure.
decide to go a different direction.
So that's what I have to say about the water fund. We'll be doing an in-depth technical analysis of the water fund, which is currently underway. Regarding the general fund, so as a reminder, the four primary expense funds that come out of that make up our general fund are admin, police, fire, and public works, and they are supported by the revenues that are discretionary revenues received through taxes and fees for service. The hotspot, I would say, in this particular case, based on my analysis at this point, roughly 7 months through, are the city attorney and consultant fees. They are rising at a rapid rate. So just throwing it out there, if you're looking at our financial statements and you look at the percentages in the right column and you're flipping through and you see general fund admin, that one is going to be disproportionate soon. In other words, when we did the budget, when Joe Tagliavacci and I prepared the budget last May and June, we didn't anticipate the trial that's occurring, and this trial has rapidly increased the cost of the city attorney's fees. I think right now we may be approaching our budgeted expense, and we're only 7 months through, and we're moving very fast.
Which was how much?
Oh gosh, I have to look at that page, that statement. It's let me find that.
I was going to ask.
General fund admin, and that would be on page. Revenue page comes first, and then the admin page is second, and I believe that is page 10 of 106 on the packet that I have, which you're looking at that, but it says there's an expense code 71110, and it's city attorney administrative and litigation. Don't be fooled by the litigation line. That's typically, an internal section we'll do at a later date. But if you combine those two together, that's $60,000 we budgeted for the city attorney. Right now, as of January, we're at $34,252 at the end of January, and I've seen the bills so far that have yet to be coded, and we're another 20,000 in. So if you add those two together, we are nearing, if not almost right at our threshold, which was our complete expectation of 60,000 total, and that's probably February. So yeah, March, April, May, and we're deep in a loss. So we'll see how that goes. But that also ripples over to our planning consultant and city engineer self, in-house staff. So it's irrelevant, although it takes away from time that we can be doing other things. It's opportunity costs that we're losing. Our planning consultant and city engineer do charge higher rates for expert witness tasks, and city engineers quite a bit higher than what they're contract. So, that's going to have another ripple effect, depending on how much time it takes for those individuals to participate. So rolling back to the so back to some of our highlights and lowlights. That was the general fund. We are saving costs in a strange way because of our reduction in staff, because of consolidated staff, city clerk, city manager, and also the grant manager or grant position that we are excited to hire for, but we just are trying to find a break in our schedule to be able to do that. So I made a note in here: substantial offsets are being carried by management and special project positions, holding a large portion of the consolidated staff in the building. As far as revenue, sales tax as of January 31st, in our records show $174,193. We budgeted $385,000. in revenue at the end of the year. So what I'm seeing is a trend of, well, again, I'll say it again. We all live here. The last couple of months seems devastating. And I don't know if you feel that and you're just passing by through town, but our water, when you look at our water consumed this last month, it's record low. Record low in consumption by 10% at least from a 5-year track versus
The governor should be happy.
the governor would be happy with us. Same thing for last month. We see it in our police stats. We also see it in our revenues, right? It's all sort of interrelated. Sales tax revenues. Yeah, I'm talking just the number of people that are coming to town, circulating through town, spending money in town, and possibly even through online sales. Because our sales tax revenues have a lot of things out there. You know, whether it be direct sales in town, gas prices, that might change a little bit because gas prices are going up. So even though we're not, you know, maybe there's not as many travelers coming through filling up their tanks, everyone's going to be paying more for pumps. So our revenues are slightly under our budgeted expectations for this time of year. Occupancy tax is right around that point too. But what we will see most likely is that when the tourist season kicks off again, when people start moving around again,
April, May, June.
even so as early as mid-March, at least from what I'm seeing in our occupancy tax and booking rates around here, that we're going to see it just go from dead to busy, you know, which is kind of like our weather. You know, these are ones to make you happy or wants to kill you, correct? So property taxes again have not been received and reported to a financial statement yet. So yeah, so the rubber hits the road with this agenda item. I'm not seeing too many anomalies. If you do look at our financial statements and you see some line items completely blown out of the water, they're attributed to one of the 4 adjustments that I will be making to align our financial statements with decisions that you've made in the last 6 months with regards to amendments to that budget. And here's those 4 broken down. So the town hall building fund, 201-78-160. You guys have made a motion to pay for them out of the capital reserve fund. So what we do is when we get those bills, we code them to that fund, but then fund looks like it's kind of exploded, but then we transfer that money from the reserves into that fund and the line items begin to align. So it'll show an expectation of $140,000 instead of $30,000, followed by an expense of $140,000, which makes that line item look really ridiculous. But once we make those, they call them journal entries with our bookkeeping, transferring the money from reserves, then our reserve balance goes down and the line items align. So that's one of them that we need to make still to align financial statements to help us prepare for the upcoming budget here. The second one is the fire fund, 401-75-300. That's contracted services. Your council made a contribution to the CSA 4 fire planning services study, which is underway right now. And that was $20,000. So that invoice, I'm not sure yet if it's been received. I think it has been, and I think we paid it. But in that particular line item, 75-300 for fire, we didn't have anything budgeted because we didn't know it's going to happen. So if you look at our financial statements, you'll see, hey, we spent $20,000 here, but we budgeted 0. That explodes your financial statements, and you have to make those. The last 2 are the water funds, 78-190. That is, I think it's materials, supplies, and equipment. There was $40,000 that we received in Measure Z funds but those funds come in the form of reimbursements. We have to make the expenses first. We apply those invoices for the things that we purchased to that fund line item, and then the Measure Z funds offset that. So these are, again, journal entries that we'll be making in the very near future, probably the next month, to correct those statements to align them to what our expectations are. And the final one was 601-75-300. That's the water fund, contracted services. We spent $30,000 roughly more than we anticipated in that line item, and that was because we trucked a bunch of water in during. So that too will be. So with that said, I think those statements that we included in the packet for review. I don't see anything that is cause for great concern. Everything looks to be aligned with what our expectations are. I think anything that we under budgeted will come back to us this spring. Based on what I know about the current economy, I don't know where we're headed. There's too many variables, but you know, what we know about Trinidad's resilience is that it's always cool over here in the summer. And we know it's getting hotter inland, so people will come here. What their habits are for spending, I'm not so sure. But with gas prices high, I think that'll help. At least a balanced budget with a reserve. When last year, I think the big picture that we included in here showed deficit spending of about $24,000. I have a feeling that's going to be the way around.
But that's what we'd like to hear.
Right, any questions for Dave on the budget? No. Any public questions or comments regarding the budget information that Gabe just shared? All right, then I will bring it back to the council. This is another accept the report. And then we'll finish with the staff activity report, which hopefully everybody has read, so you can hit the things that really matter to you. That's we've done our homework.
So I don't have any visual presentation for this, and I'll keep it short and sweet. With everything we've got going on, I really don't like making excuses, but with everything we've got going on, there were so many things I wanted to include that I wasn't able to include this report. So I made it brief. There's some repetitive things from prior discussions in here, but I always read through it and I make sure it's relevant. I don't like to have anything that's too outdated or irrelevant. But I'll cut right to the point here. We spent a lot of time preparing for the trial, and myself completely inundated with that right now. And that is taking up a lot of time and a considerable amount of time. City attorney, engineer, manager, mayor pro tem, preparing for this trial and this full council and closed session meetings. I've also spent about a large amount of time on this water leak issue. So this has been something that I've really tried to take on by the reins, you know, because I know it had the ability to balloon out of proportion. And I really appreciate Mayor Kelly and Kenny, Mayor Pro Tem Kenny, for your guidance and your advice in terms of how to handle these situations as a team. Coming out ahead of this, the post-incident report, Councilman Waskowitz really made an impression on me with that one. So I know you were at that meeting, Mayor Kelly, but when he said that, I thought that was a good idea, and we sort of topped it off this last week. So those two things alone have taken a lot of time, but there's been a lot of highlights, a lot of successes. Our short-term rental permit process is about ready to conclude. Last year, I don't even think we got our permits out until May. Here we are, early March, and we have almost all of them issued already, or at least rounding the corner to be issued. And that's a huge step. Anton made it feel almost painless, you know, whereas in prior years it was a very challenging task. But we'll give some credit to Jennifer Aikman, who set the rails for us before she left and set a nice system that we've been able to build on. Angela, too, has been a tremendous support while, you know, with the Intertide project. The Intertide project is just a beast, and it just won't go away. And we really want it to go away. We want the project to just be up and running, but it just seems like there's one complication after the next. I believe Angela's still here. Angela's still here. Okay, so I believe that that we are rounding. Are we rounding third yet on that project? So okay, so we're really close to rounding third. I think the end of March, correct me if I'm wrong, is the deadline for final reporting. Potentially April, we might have a little bit of an extension because we've had some issues with construction of that building.
Is adding ventilation a targeted remedy for the mold problem?
I sure hope so. You know, we're drilling down to that right now.
Because that sounds relatively inexpensive figures for us.
That's what I thought, and that's what I said, and that's where I was hoping the the engineers, Case Engineering, the firm that designed the building, that we were held very accountable to building to those standards, to those specs. I think that firm is, we're trying to give them a comfortable opportunity to address this in a manner that's reasonable.
Again, they were from the dryer product hotel.
Is that any better?
Yeah, we had other issues related to different line. Yeah.
We did, and I'm giving them an opportunity, a very gracious opportunity to find a way to meet some of our building standards.
Our needs and expectations.
Yeah. There's a lot of electrical components in that building that we do not want to see
go haywire
underwater, sweating underwater. Anyway. So that project has been very time consuming. Another one I thought I would throw out during this meeting is the town hall phone communication. So anybody that's been trying to reach town hall who has a Verizon cell phone calling city's landline over the last, 6 weeks or whatever, we've solved the mystery problem, right? So it was very much the words that they used at the higher brass and the two communications companies were switchboarding and trunking. So I'm not sure what those words, I've heard of them before. I know what a switchboard is, but I have no idea what it means in terms of cellular, activity. But as it turns out, we were getting a lot of pushback from the community. Why can't I get through to you guys? The message didn't say the call couldn't be completed. It said that the person you're trying to call will not answer, cannot answer or something. It's very odd. Anyway, we plowed our way through your bureaucracy, and there was somebody higher up in Verizon who had been with the company long enough and knew enough about the technology, and he says, I know what it is. So we got it fixed. And while we were getting it fixed, as we were discovering after multiple emails back and forth, I believe Eatery came out of the closet and said, hey, we're having this problem too. And the school had the same problem, but no one could figure out what to do. And I believe, Jack, you might know more than any of us. I guess the school was parents were trying to contact the school and they were unable to reach the school. So it became a bigger storm than I think any of us imagined. But we got this. We talked to the right people. We plowed using our communications contacts, and it was almost fixed in a snap. So fast that the school principal had no idea what was. It's like, it's fixed? Really? So that made a big difference. That was a odd success for us. And then streetlights. There's been a lot of talk about streetlights and dark streets in town, right? So I have been reaching out to the higher brass of PG&E, and the long story short on that one is that our light fixtures are beginning to be outdated. I think there's planned obsolescence in everything these days, and these lights have been giving their troublemen so much issues that they have decided to order brand new heads, not just a light, not just a photocell, not just new guts, but an entirely new head. It's a retrofit. And they have, before the last storm, I think in early February, mid-February, they were going to come and install them, but instead all their attention got diverted to the army of PG&E resources dedicated pre-storm. So if that hasn't been installed yet, it will be very soon, and it's going to be tested on the corner of Stagecoach here and Trinidad and Main Street. And if it works, they're going to order new heads for every light in Trinidad. If it doesn't work, PG&E's representative, government representative, Allison Talbot, I've invited her to come and speak to our community and for herself and for her own company as to what steps they're taking to make this right. Because they do owe it to us. They take us seriously, even though we're small. But as we all might discover tonight and have discovered in the past, we're going to leave this council meeting and walk down some pretty dark streets. Some of us like that. Some of us don't. Right? So
are those dark sky approved because they point down?
They are. They are dark sky approved light fixtures. They point down, and they're at least the ones we currently have are not of a certain brilliance that is blinding. However, the new fixtures, I'm not so sure.
I just read an article today that Denmark installed red traffic lights, would you guys say, that are red street lights. So they're all red so that it's like, doesn't impact your night vision or, yeah, I guess birds or bats, I guess, at night. But I thought, well, that would be interesting. A red light just right. Yeah, Trinidad.
I thought those were.
Anyway. Yeah, exactly.
So it's Denmark?
Denmark.
Yeah.
That's what's Denmark.
Learn something every day.
Well, my thought exactly when I read it, but anyway.
Well, we can
stop,
always-
stop short of suggesting that.
If we, I don't know, I mean, I nowadays you can put film on light fixtures, especially LEDs, they don't get so hot, so if you like that tone or color.
The blue, just
Yeah, I'm just trying to point out a few things that you all might experience in your dealings with the community.
yeah.
Thanks for street light.
That's come up. Yeah.
Measure Z grant funding, I believe we really did a good job trying to apply for a measly $17,000 worth of maintenance items again for our water treatment plant, and it was unsuccessful.
I mean, the front boat. It's
Looking like our items that we've requested may not be successful.
Super competitive.
It's very.
And we got a lot of measures you already did.
We did this past year. We got, I believe, $40,000 worth. So that's that was positive. We're very grateful. All right, totally. Let's see. I think those were my biggest points. Walk improvement project. I noted the city received a grant closeout payment of $630 at the end of January, so we'll have that. Two. Oh, and the town hall paint. So our town hall sign is at a company called Victory Signs. They're located, I think, near the Blue Ox building behind Target in Eureka. They are a fascinating company. They hand paint signs. They're amazing. That's an art form that's not, I don't see that too much anymore. And it looks like we're going to get another 10 years life out of that sign. There's been some rot and some things that needed to be repaired on the actual structure of the sign, but that sign's going to be with us hopefully for another 10 years. The last time it was done was about 10 years ago. So Victory Signs is carrying the torch in that history now of the town hall sign being painted. Hopefully we'll have it back in 2 weeks. And
The other paint item.
what? Oh, and then, yeah, I mentioned that. I even put this in here just for you. It says the city manager is and Angela discussing the painters to resolve concerns raised by several members of our community with that the top decorative blue trim on the facade is unattractive. So Glenn Hamanaka and I, the owner of the company, he and I are going to meet later this week. They're going to put a second coat on the front porch, the treatment on the front porch. He identified, we talked yesterday, a couple of spots he feels like needed some touch up. And then we're also going to talk about some possible remedies for that particular metal trim that goes around the top of the facade, which apparently when it was painted blue, a high gloss blue, I believe. I think that's when it kind of turned a little bit cheesy. Maybe I'm not.
It makes all the bushes stand out like tape. But I don't know that just painting in a different color is going to.
It may not be a different color, but a different sheen. So like a satin or maybe
But
not.
it still looks like tape. You know, is that weatherproof?
It's a real thin. I believe it's either tin or sheet metal, just to wrap the edge of the facade to keep weather out of it. You know, maybe it wasn't the. I mean, this room used to have drops. What did it have? Chicken wire around fluorescent light fixtures. You know, and then it had that same paneling on that bar covered the whole room until we peeled it off. So why design decisions were made in the 70s and 80s, I'm not so sure. But I know that's been up there for a while. Bryce can probably attest to that. I don't think anybody's done any improvements to the facade structurally and probably pretty cosmetically. So we're trying to figure out how we can treat that. We'll look to Glenn Hamanaka, who's a genius when it comes to paint.
Yeah.
You know, kind of just fool in the eye with color. We're hoping he can come up with a solution that's not going to.
And apparently we need to work on the interior of the building now, since the wall behind us is falling down.
Yeah,
As it is.
Yeah.
that was an interesting one.
Yeah, you know, and on that note, just to park this for future, since we're working on a wish list, is sound sound walls, like I hear from all the people that play here, the musicians, that it would be nice if we had better acoustics, so just,
Okay.
do something in that regard, but anyway. If we have to replace walls, that might be something to look at.
We can talk about that during the budget too. We're gonna budget coming up. We can add some, maybe find somebody that can offer us some creative acoustic features.
It would have to look good because of the historical, but anyway.
So that's all I have, and if you have any questions about anything else happening in town and something that's maybe crossed your paths in time, just let me know right now.
Question, Angela?
We went out to bid. Sorry,
Oh.
you said that.
Yeah, the STIP project, which is the Main Street overlay and the improvement on that sidewalk on the south side. That project has gone into bid. So it's been out in the, high standard, I think the Humboldt Builders Exchange and the various outlets that our engineering team uses to put these large projects out to bid. Hopefully, I don't know what the deadline on that is, we can figure it out, but it's gonna be probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then we'll get a contractor on board to do that project, which isn't slated to happen until, I believe, May or June.
So one little question, probably a typo, but it caught my attention, so I want to clarify. Sure, on page 88, under water, third bullet point, talks about Carl passes his T3 exam, buildings hours, and it says required amount of hours required to serve in the T2 capacity. Did not say T3.
It's, you gotta be licensed T2, and then you have to serve in that capacity in the water system that you are looking to achieve your T3 status for. So.
Oh, I see. So you do your time as a T2.
Exactly.
And then you can move up.
Yeah. And we sent his paperwork off to the state. He's passed his test. He had the pass certification receipt in his hand, and then we filled out the paperwork, sent it to the state water board with a fee of dollars or something like that. It's pretty nominal, and it's really just for them to log you in as a certified operator, rather than they send you that certification back.
Okay, great, thank you.
Right, I don't see any other comments from the council, and I've already asked for public comments, I believe. So with that, we will move on to future agenda items. The only one I wanted to mention was fire, because it seemed like we heard a lot about that. So maybe an update on the CSA4, investment, and when that comes to more fruition, but then also, I guess we can talk about whether or not we have a good fire prevention strategy. The other agenda items you guys caught from tonight? Or just want?
Oh, no.
I think of them right now. Well, you know where to find Gabe. Okay, then I think with that we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Good meeting.
Thank you.